I mean, there are good reasons they're buying gold, yes. And it's, if you like, an escape from the dollar, which I think is probably the most important point. But the Chinese situation is interesting because you have to go back to when the People's Bank of China, the state bank, the state central bank, was first appointed the monopoly of gold and silver dealing. And that was way back in 1983. So we're talking about something which is, 38 years ago now. Now, what happened was that no resident in China was allowed to hold gold at all, or silver for that matter. So during the time between then and when they were permitted, which was 2002, which was when the Shanghai Gold Exchange was founded, it's quite clear that the state accumulated a pile of gold. In particular, we'll talk about gold rather than silver. It did this, right, for obvious reasons. Others have done this in the past. I mean, I go back to the Arabs in the 1970s, when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard completely. Effectively, he and Kissinger said to the Arabs, look, we can't stop you charging what you like for your oil, but the one thing we're going to insist on is that it's priced in dollars, and that you run your surpluses in dollars through our banking system. And of course, that money was then lent for political reasons to Latin America, and all disappeared, basically. Then you had the Brady bonds to try and rescue the whole thing and all the rest of it. Another example was Germany after the Second World War. When Germany's economy began to recover and really build and got going nicely, it started, buying gold. It put dollars into gold, sort of substantially held at the New York Fed. The Arabs were doing the same thing. I didn't quite finish that story. But, for an Arab, they were looking at, as far as they were concerned, and we're talking about Bedouin stock, basically, what is property? It's not money as far as they're concerned. It's gold, and it's nice flash houses and a really good camel. So, gold is so much in their psyche. So they were putting a figure like 10, maybe 15% of what they were earning from oil revenues into gold. And China had exactly the same view. It did not want to have just dollars because it knew that dollars could go to nothing and they would have no control over it. So what do? You have some insurance against it. And so between 1983 and 2002, the People's Bank of China accumulated huge quantities of gold. Now, I know this basically from the way the regulations appointing them were written. We also know this because China invested an awful lot of money into gold mines and became the largest producer in the world in short order. We know this because the state still controls and runs completely all the gold refining industry in China, and furthermore imports doré from other countries. We also know this, that no gold leaves China at all. So, is this do they like gold? Like hell they do. They really love it. It's quite clear. So, and also anecdotal evidence, through contacts, they tell me that this has been distributed around various accounts. For example, the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, has stacks of it in warehouses. The Communist Party account has stacks of it and all the rest of it. None of this is appearing really in the official reserves. So they've got loads of it. And the answer, I think, is they're not going to use it to back their own currency because that would limit what they do with their own currency. But it is an insurance policy against a collapsing dollar. And you must remember that Marxist universities, where all these guys learned their economics, the number one thing that they say, which is something that Marx said, and that is that capitalism destroys itself and their currencies with it. So what are the Chinese doing? They're insulating themselves against the collapse of capitalism.